Hello, everyone. Apologies in advance for the AI voice. But as an autistic person, I'm not able to speak flawlessly. Thank you for your understanding. That said, I'd like to share the knowledge I've accumulated over the years, starting with Zbrush techniques. What you'll see is the sculpting of one of my future game characters. First, you'll see the various belts on the character's back. You should always emphasize the edges first using the standard brush, then work your way inward. If you're a beginner or don't feel confident, make sure to download references, study them carefully, and build your own models based on those. Once you're done, I recommend either using Surface to scatter the alphas or doing it manually. This way, the surface will already gain material definition, and you'll see how to proceed from there. Additionally, a bonus tip: always pay close attention to depth. I mainly use the standard brush to raise the surface, so my goal is to emphasize the folds. Once that's done, I move on. You can also use the clay strips brush or the dam standard brush, depending on how sharp a contrast you want to create. This all depends on you and your project. For example, you draw a line from left to right at an angle, then you draw a perpendicular line to it, and then maybe another one that forms a roughly right angle. The next thing you need to do is deepen it. Whatever falls inside the triangle, you subtract sub, whether you're using the clay brush or something else. This way, you'll already have a clothing fold. This works well whether you're aiming for stylized or realistic clothing. And at the end of the video, I'll also show another technique. Next comes something I usually treat as a test, because I never jump directly from sculpting cloth to working on metal or organic surfaces. What I'll do now is draw a few Gothic-style patterns using the dam standard brush. This helps me see how the armor will need to be transformed later, where it should be cut up or possibly segmented. I'd like to show that in another video though, because that's strictly a hard surface topic. However, there's something here that might feel a bit strangely contradictory to you, but it actually isn't. Some of the armor plates are already completely finished, and they only need to be detailed with alpha brushes. For example, I need to give them a bit of a metallic feel to create the impression that this armor has already been used. With the dam standard brush, you can easily add scratches and occasionally smooth certain areas. This makes things slightly asymmetrical, which adds a lot of realism to your character or asset. My personal style aligns most closely with From Software's style. I always mix genres because, in my opinion, From Software blends two styles: realism and what you could call an anime-like style. By realism, I mean how refined and eccentric their armor designs are, which feels very realistic. At the same time, some of the characters feel more anime-inspired. For example, Ronnie from Elden Ring, or honestly, almost any character's face. You can see this approach in another favorite of mine as well, Lies of P, which I think is a brilliant work. Think about it. When you look at an asset there, or a weapon or clothing, you don't think of a stylized or anime look first. You think of realism. Yet the characters themselves, like P, Pinocchio, or my favorite character Eugenie, who really won me over, not to mention the tragedy of the supporting female hero, lean more toward that stylized direction. I'd be interested in your opinion. Let me know in the comments. Do you like Souls games? And if so, why? What's still left to do is the shoulder and the head. These are the two parts I'd like to prioritize. Other than that, don't overthink modeling or detailing. A model doesn't become detailed just because you keep adding more and more things to it, or because it's covered in tons of alphas. A model becomes truly detailed when you reach the point where you can say, okay, this is good, the forms are perfect, now I can move on. And by that, I mean exactly this. Don't clutter it with all kinds of gadgets. You don't need to. The model will become overcrowded, and if you don't know where the limit is, you'll end up working on a single project forever, which, let's be honest, isn't profitable. Find your style. Find what you're good at and push that to the maximum. Or, if you decide that you really want to learn everything, then you have to commit to it and actually do it. Because if you're a beginner, there's a high chance you'll end up at an indie studio, where you either need to learn multiple disciplines or already know them and handle several departments on your own, like VFX, modeling, UI, UX, and animation. If you'd like game development related tips and tricks, and you want to learn workflows that you can actually afford without your wallet crying at night, then if you haven't already, now is the time to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll learn how to bake properly, the basics of programming, hard surface techniques, how to do UV mapping the right way, and we'll also go through common mistakes. So don't hesitate. Jump in and join the channel. And now I'll start working on the head, along with a bonus tip for creating cloth folds. After I've built the basics, like this keffiyeh-style head covering, I carefully use masking and extrusion, then place a mid-poly primitive geometry to guide the flow of the fabric. After that, I create another primitive geometry, but this time it's a plane. I'll leave it up to you whether you use dynamic subdivision or not, but I do use it sometimes because it makes the model easier to read. Then you go into the Dynamics menu and set the main attributes of your cloth material. I usually set gravity to around 0.01, so it's easy to see how the fabric falls. Once the simulation reaches a good position, I stop it and start detailing. A few words about the more important settings. Gravity obviously controls the strength of gravity acting on the cloth. It can have a very strong downward force, or you can even make it feel like space by using a negative value. Then there are 4 parameters. The first is inflate, which is mostly useful for things like pillows, blankets, or curtains. The second is deflate, its negative counterpart. Here I usually use masking, and it's kind of like vacuum sealing a piece of fabric. The third and fourth are expand and contract. I almost never use these, but they basically do exactly what their names suggest. Expand positively affects the surface area of the material, while negative values contract it. I'd say these are more for experimentation than everyday use. Collision is where you set how different materials interact with each other. Things like quality or inflate, which controls how far another mesh starts to influence your cloth. Recalc is something you should press whenever there's any interaction around or with the cloth, such as moving it in space to refresh the data. Finally, there's simulation, which starts the whole sequence.